Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. I support women to bloom in midlife with creativity and spiritual life coaching. I'm your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before this episode with Jodi Law, I would like to invite you to download my midlife meditation, which is created to remind you that your life is a precious gift and reaching midlife is a milestone worth celebrating and marking the start of an exciting new chapter. Also tune into Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to this title. I have now just begun a new series which is based on the Wheel of Midlife. The links are in the show notes below. My guest this week is Jodi Anne Law, a transformational energy medicine practitioner with 30 years in acute cardiac care. Burnt out, she left traditional healthcare to follow her passion for holistic healing. Now she empowers those in physical and emotional pain to take charge of their health, understand their bodies, and connect with their intuition through her signature program. During our conversation, Jodi shares about her own personal story, from leaving an emotionally abusive 20-year marriage to exploring healing modalities and now helping others. So as always, I begin by asking my guest. HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
That's a really good question. So to be honest, now these days, I feel it just about in everything that I do. So I wake up early, and even if I don't get up, it's always connecting in with, I go through in my head what will my day be like, and I just tune into what feels right. So yes, it's a case of I've got a list of things that I need to do, like we all do, but it is very much tuning it. Is it in line with my higher self? And so does it feel right? And even if some of the things that are a bit more out there, it's still a case of, well, how can I do that in the best possible way so that it's not even in control, because the more you feel you're in control, you're less in control, but it's just tuning in. Does it feel right with my head and my heart? And certainly working with clients is absolutely tuned in. When I'm painting and doing yoga, all the things that I love to do that are much more in my life now anyway. So I would say just about all the time. And it's so different to how life was beforehand. It's just so much more enjoyable that it's a no-brainer to continue doing it. Do you know? So, yeah, in answer to that, I would say just about every part of my life is like that now.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you for responding to that. And before we go into our conversation, I just want to give you an opportunity to share a bit about who you are and how you got to be doing the work that you're doing today.
Well, where do we start? Mm-hmm. So I guess we go back 11 years, and I was not in a very good place at all. Through adversity we get great things. And I'd left a 20-year relationship, and it wasn't great. It was an emotionally abusive relationship. But at the time, so I left, and it wasn't planned. It just was one of those things, a couple of coincidental things happened, and it was like, I just have to leave. And but I had 2 young children, 5 and 7 at the time, and I still left because I wasn't being of any use to them in the family unit anyway, because he was very controlling, and I wasn't in much of a state to look after them as I wanted to anyway. So I left. But then, of course, because you're not in a good way, but you've got all the guilt attached to they're my children. What do I do with them? So I then had to work on me to get me to a place where I would be okay to have them in my life, I guess on my terms, and not just my terms, but just in a way that I was going to be of use to them. So, it's been an absolutely incredible journey on the way. And it started off, I was introduced to yoga, and I had, just from a health point of view, it was going to be great, but the realization of what it actually meant when you started it. So for the first 2 weeks of this year, I had actually joined just around the corner from where I was living. I had joined a yoga studio, and there was a deal where it was 6 weeks for $25. And I knew that I would have to go every day just to cope, get up to go to work and get on with the day. And for the first 2 weeks, every class that I did, I was in tears at the end of every class. And I didn't actually know, okay, all I knew was that it meant there was something good about this yoga. I felt good afterwards because it was such a release, and I didn't really know much about it. So that led me to do yoga teacher training. And by this time I'd moved to the country, so I did have more time to work on me because I knew that that was the essential part of healing. Because to be honest, I did the conventional things and went on antidepressants as it was suggested, and went and saw a psychologist for 12 months. And at the end of the 12 months, nothing had changed. So, not being very impressed by that fact, I then decided I didn't have a plan. It just was, that's what came into my life. So yoga came into my life, and then I moved to the country, so I had more time. I could still work and have more time to do it because it's cheaper to live there. And my children came out every second weekend to see me. So that sort of started that pattern, which worked out really well. And then 3 months into the yoga teacher training course, and it was amazing because again, with no planning, this woman that ran the course, she'd been involved in yoga for 40 years. She was this beautiful, eccentric guru that just knew so much, not just about yoga, but about life. And she was so connected to the earth and so much wisdom. And we just got on really well as well. So, and I'd go away for a yoga weekend, and I was surrounded by all these beautiful people that wanted to bring yoga to the populace. And I started off, I was the angry one, and I was so opinionated. And even the first weekend, I just started to melt. So pretty quickly, my life started to change with just about everything. And then I found, 3 months in, I found energy psychology and was introduced to that. And it was brilliant because I then got to understand me on an energetic level and emotions. What do I do with emotions? It was that was probably the key to massive change. And I started 18 months basically of yoga and energy psychology, and I got to work on me and find out about me on an energetic level, and that totally changed the trajectory of my life. But of course, life goes on, and I'd been in such a low place. I had lots of rungs on the ladder to get up to where I'd like to be. And so my ex-husband is English. So he brought the children to Manchester. And we weren't married. We'd divorced by that stage. And so I needed to get a visa to get into the country. And the first visa I didn't get. So good job I had a few tools on board. So finally got over here. And then so I've been here 5 years now, and I've still continued to do work on me because I've been in the health system for the last 30 years, and I'd done that back in Australia. And of course, that's what you do when you come to a new country, something that you know. And but 5 years here, or actually 18 months ago, I was working in the health system, running a cardiac cath lab with, you have a heart attack, and we'd come in and put stents in, or a pacemaker if you needed a pacemaker, or heart ablations. But I was burnt out, completely burnt out, having done so much in so many areas of nursing. And so I left the health system, ended up leaving the health system. And now I'm working with people doing all the things that I learned along the way, creating a program to transform people's lives and using all the tools, transform people's lives naturally. So it's called Radiant Health, harnessing the power to heal yourself. And it is very much about going in and just being aware of what it is that's going on inside, because we're so into the outside world and, you know, with social media and television and all that internet and all those things. And it keeps us busy and distracted more than, you know, if you actually look inside, there's a nice quiet place that's very comforting and content and allows you to have that head-heart connection that you asked about at the beginning. But for most of our lives, it's not like that. It's all living outside and with noise. And we're all searching for things. Humans are all searching for things, aren't they? And for me, that's what I was searching for. And so if I can help in any way to let people know, tune into their intuition. So what I actually say is I empower people in emotional and physical pain to take control of their health, understand their body from an energetic point of view, and tune into their intuition to transform their life. Because once you get those connections, you have all the answers. It's just me helping to get you to that point where you have that trust in yourself and you can tune in. So it's been an interesting journey, I have to admit. And so now I've actually, the last 2 years, I moved in with my daughter, which has been fantastic. And, you know, she was 17 at the time. So it was 9 years that we weren't living together. And I've loved even all the tantrums that come with living with a 17-year-old girl. It was just I guess the emphasis I put on, I finally got to be a parent as I had envisaged when I first had children. And we've got such a good relationship. She's actually gone off to university this year, but we keep in contact regularly. And I mean, of course I would change it if I'd had the opportunity to spend more time with him on those little things. But I'm just so grateful that we have got such a good relationship now, and we'll continue to grow that. And my son, he lives with his father not in Spain, but I've got a really good relationship with him. So I don't see him as often, but we get each other. So, you know, and if I look back to how I dealt with it when I left, it was very much a case of, once I got onto that understanding, I think it's a Buddhist teaching that, you know, children choose their parents from what they have to learn, and I also choose them. So once I realized that, and they were on their own journey, and fortunately that was quite early on, around when I was doing the energy psychology, so it was quite early on. So even though of course there was guilt and shame and all those things that go with, I mean, you don't leave your children if you're happy. I mean, no mother would ever do that. So even though I had all that going on, with that thought in my mind, it was like, okay, it made it easier to let go of all those things and just work on me, knowing that once I did whatever I needed to do, then they would feel it energetically anyway. They would know, and so they would have that as a role model, as opposed to someone that just had no say in the family unit and no interaction with them because of circumstance. So yes, they would definitely be my driving force. Children are so emotive, aren't they? And being my driving force to do what I did. And I know I have said several times, I didn't have a plan. It was just, I felt I couldn't go any further down. So I just had to go up somehow. And yeah, I've ended up here, and I'm in a totally different place than I was. So it's if I could share that with everyone, because if we learned this sort of thing in school instead of a lot of the things that we do learn, the world would be a totally different place. Because I totally believe everybody is put on this earth for a purpose. And if we were living, and this is definitely my purpose, there's no question. 100% this is my purpose. And if we were all living our purpose, how happy would we be? I mean, we deserve to be happy. That's what human beings are put on the earth to do. But it's getting to that point with all the noise out there. So yeah, if I can assist anyone on that journey, I'm totally open to it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jodi. So many ways that I can go, but I want to first start by saying the majority of women that I work with and make up a high percentage of the listenership are women in midlife. So they're going through a lot of transitions during that period of time as well, not just physically, but, emotionally. And then also, as you're going through then, or as you went through, situations around them that are not aligned for them to go any further start to create turbulence, and they will break away, and either we try and fight and hold on to them, or we have to allow them to fall. And sometimes in that not knowing of what's on the other side, we just hold on to better the devil than the one that you don't, so you hold on to a situation because you're fearing the change. But then also the transition that you've gone through, where your children are at the point now where they're becoming more independent, and now you're really left with identifying who and what you are and what purpose you can bring to yourself, and then also working out what kind of parent you need to be to this growing adult. For women who are going through that kind of period where their children are kind of transitioning into their early adulthood, don't need them as much, and they're now having to reflect on who they are, the choices that they've made with their relationships, whether they're still with the parents or not, or still with the significant other that they've had that relationship with, or even like you have had to change location, you've taken it to the complete other side of the world.
Yeah.
How did you stay sane in that? And I know you had those practices, but what were the things that came up for you that you could lean on and use what you know, and words that you can offer in terms of someone who's going through it right now? They see they're losing their children, or the job doesn't feel right, or the partner doesn't feel like somebody that they can move forward with, and they feel that they need to make changes. And also that question of like, I need to do something with my life. I'm here for more. What's my purpose?
Wow, that is such a loaded question, isn't it? It covers so much. So what I did, so it was the tools that you have to so mindfulness has been a huge one. And to be honest, it's everything. For me, it was really important from the physical side of things. So movement, even it's get outside and walk. So the really practical things were mindfulness and movement, journaling. I paint. So I've got loads of tools, and it just depends on what's happening as to what I use. And I've painted forever. That's actually one of the things that I'm now getting out into the world. My paintings, just as part of my voice as I transition to what's the next steps, as you were saying. So for me, the key is finding out what works for you. So what I would suggest is find what works for you. So mind, body, soul, we're talking here. So for me, certainly the movement, and whether it be yoga or energy medicine, or walking, just getting out there. And I've joined the gym as well. So that's all about the practicalities, all these practical things to do in action. And then the mind thing is mindfulness. And even if it's not listening on YouTube or to a podcast, just tuning in to you and intention and gratefulness and those sort of things in the morning. So what's my day? How do I want my day to be? And really ask those questions, because we all have a choice, don't we? Our day could be absolutely disastrous, but if we put an intention in the morning on how we want it to be, and we know who we're going to meet or who we're going to interact with, how would you like that day to be? And really envisage that before you go out, and the feeling that you want to have when you're with those people, so that if it is something like you're going to a networking thing, how do you want the day to? Because I mean, energy medicine and a networking meeting, I used to dread them. And because mostly people would say, well, what is it that you do? And then you'd tell them and they say, well, what is it that you do? So that's been a real challenge. So it's how do I want the day to, I would start by, my intention would be that I really just want them to understand what I do, let alone come on board for anything. But the more you visualize and the more you intend it, it actually does work, because that's the energy that you're emitting and it comes back. So when you'd go in and you would dread it, you would have a dreadful time. So there was no point me going when I was in that state. So it was about flicking that switch. And then, of course, so what have we done? Mind, body, and soul, and also the other thing is not to, as much as structure is good, I have found it better to the flexibility. You want flexibility within the structure as well, because even you have this intention of how you want the day to go. You've created that. And it doesn't go like that and you're upset. It's also about, okay, be okay with it not turning out how you wanted. So there is so much flexible in everything, isn't it? So life is not black and white as much as we want it to be. So explore, write down your list of where you are now, write down your list of where you would like to be, and then you can at least see the gaps between. And how big is it for the, and what I would suggest is start with the easy things first, because when you start with the easy things, then you get the confidence. And when you've got the confidence, you're putting that energy out. And then once you've got the confidence, you're on a roll and starting to get in your flow. And then the other things that you want to do, they may go by the wayside anyway, and you may find they're not important. And if they're still there, they can become easier as well. So you may not know what the steps are. That doesn't matter. Just write down what it is that you want, because half the issue is knowing what you want, particularly when you've been in a certain trajectory and then things are changing so much. How do you know? Because you haven't lived it. So it is with the mindfulness, just visualize, imagine, do a meditation about just imagining what do you feel like internally, so that it is very flowy. And I can't say don't. It's like saying should, isn't it? It's not about don'ts and shoulds, but be okay with it being as outlandish, as unlimited as possible. Really dream, get into your dreams. What did you like to do when you were a child that you thought you might want to do? Is there something in that resonates with you now? So it's really about asking a lot of questions about you, totally about you. Because for most of us as women, we've lived our lives through our children or our husbands or our partners or whatever it is, because we enjoy the family unit, and that's been a big part of our lives. So when it's not there, it leaves a massive gap. And for me, even though I hadn't lived with my daughter for such a long period of time, and then I did for a couple of years, and now she's off to uni again, I've noticed her not being here, even though I hadn't had her for her whole life. There's certainly things I've put in place to fill that gap. It's called being human. So what I can suggest is you're definitely not alone in what's happening. And that's the other thing. Find people you're around that really help you, because your environment is a massive thing. And if it's not, and if the people that you're around feel like it's something you want to let go of, that's okay too. Because as you change, people either come along with you and assist you in that change, or they do go by the wayside. But then what happens is that other people that are going to help you and support you come into your life. So you're still getting that support, but it's just from different people. And it feels so good because they're aligned with where you are and where you'd like to be. So there's lots actually to say about change, isn't there? Because we are resistant to change. That's part of being human as well. But understanding that however you feel, that's okay. And there's going to be plenty of other people like you feeling like that. So be okay to voice it. And don't feel as though you're on your own, because the worst thing is when you feel like you're on your own and you're stuck in the house and it's winter and the days are short, and that's psychologically not very. It's not like summer, is it? And our vitamin D levels are lower and all those things that come along with my fifth winter in the UK. Yeah, I certainly still notice it. There's those sad lamps that are out there to help you, the seasonal affective disorder, because the days are so short and dark. There's definitely something in that too. If that resonates with you, honestly, that's part of that happens. Absolutely happens. And so join groups that are going to support you. And if that's how, even online groups, anything to surround yourself and lift you up. So in answer to that, there's so many things you can do. So that may not be helpful, but find out what works for you and do it. Because, because funnily enough, part of my program is about finding your daily routine and all the suggestions that I've got and I can give to get people find out what works for them, so they can be on that trajectory. Because with energy and energy medicine, you've got that graph, and down in that bottom corner is where you are now, and you want to be here, and you want that new life that you're envisaging because of all the change that you're going through. And it's not a straight line. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. And the closer you get to it, the more streamlined the approach. But in the early days, when you're going through that, what is it that I want? It can be really up and really down and really up and really down. And so you kind of one step forward and two steps back. And that's quite normal as well. But the more you persist in the new habits that you know are going to be beneficial to you, the trajectory, it gets a lot smoother, and you're heading towards your goals in a lot quicker. So persist. And if you want help, just ask. There's plenty of people out there that are really, really willing to assist.
I want to ask you about communication, because you mentioned networking. Yes. Going to networking events, and when you were talking about it just brought up some instances of networking events that I'd gone to where I came away just going, okay, that's not really the way that I go about promoting myself, and
I totally get you.
I mean, one of the reasons why I'd gone to a networking event, because I've changed town. So I used to live more in central London, and then I moved more to the outskirts. So I didn't have like a network here. I kind of changed the way that I was working or what I was doing as well. So there was a little kind of twist to it. And also I just wanted to get away from the laptop, so I'd found a local networking event. And I loved the community of it, speaking to women who were doing lots of different things. However, it was the way that we go about talking about what it is that we do.
Yes.
That sometimes was like, slow down, because it's almost like this kind of market stall approach. There are a couple of events that I went to, or one in particular. There was the regular monthly meeting, which had a little bit of a pitch fest, but it wasn't so bad. But there was one event that I went to where for some reason I thought I'd take part in this, it was kind of based on the speed dating model.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever done that? Okay.
So how can you do a 30-second pitch on what you do?
Oh, my goodness me. So I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea, but for some reason I thought it would be a good idea. I'd kind of traveled a little bit out of where I lived, and I'm like, let me just go with that. I didn't have cards. I didn't, I just don't work like that at all. I do now because I had to do some other events where it was necessary for me to have cards and stuff. But till that point, it's like, I don't have cards. I mean, I can add you on Instagram or so, So I was not like kind of prepared on that level to go with cards and flyers and all the rest of it. So I thought, we'll see what this kind of speed dating thing is all about. And one, I've never taken part in a speed dating event anyway, but I know what they're about. I've heard of them. I've seen the whole process. But what this what had been set up as this room where there was, two circles, like one internal circle, one
on the outside.
One on the outside, and we're facing each other, and we're given, I think it was either 30 seconds or a minute each to speak to each other. Speak, I'll say in quotation marks, and then you speak to one person, you speak to the other person, the bell rings, you get up and you move around each other until you end up all the way around where you started off as well. And that was not a good idea, because if you want to talk about energy, because as is nature, we all start and we lean forward and we're speaking to this person about what we do, and they're speaking to us about what we do, and then as time goes on, the noise level in the room was just going higher and higher and higher, to by the time we were down to the end of it, people were screaming at each other. And I'm thinking, there is absolutely no way either of us nobody's going to get any business out of this. Nobody.
I have to giggle because I commend you for doing that. And like the nature of the work that we do as well, like if it was an accountant, everyone knows what an accountant does, but energy medicine, what's that? And I haven't done the speed dating, but the networking that I did, that it was just like, what am I doing? And I'd go and it was a minute. We had a minute with each other, and it was the same thing. You'd leave though feeling deflated because you hadn't even got your message across as to what you did, let alone who can I send to you? There was not. How could you? Because no one's. So what I found. So the best things I've found actually. Going to festivals, because of the nature of what we do, going to festivals and giving talks. And then people will come to you and ask the questions, but you've got a ready-made audience of people that are interested in the sort of work that you do anyway.
Right, yeah.
So I found them really good, and I would also give taster sessions there as well, so they could feel it. So that's probably the best in terms of getting clients out of it. That's a really long-winded way of doing it, but at least you don't feel deflated when you leave, and you have people for your email list. So that's probably the best that I've experienced.
Yeah.
And the other things, the best good things that have worked is through people that I've known in businesses other than mine that have known me over a period of time, and I know that they're good at business. So they've linked me through with small groups of people, and that feels a lot more tangible, and at least then they can have a bit more of an understanding of what it is I do. And a lot of the time I will give them sessions so that they know what it is that I do, and it's like, oh, okay, now I know who I can refer to you. Yeah. So it isn't straightforward from a networking point of view.
Yeah.
And definitely, I've got Eden Energy Medicine is a group that I'm involved with, but I mean, we all do the same thing, so it's all working so that works well in terms of suggestions on how to get out into the world. What's worked for some people and hasn't worked for others, it's those things. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting concept, because we know the world needs our services. Why doesn't everyone else know that?
Yeah, I mean, it like when you said networking, it just brought to mind that day. And the thing is, I came out of that room just going like, I felt like someone had been slapping me around the face for like 10 minutes. It was just because everyone's shouting at you, and then you're trying to speak to people, and I've got quite a soft voice anyway. So then I'm trying to lean forward, and then I'm trying to shout, and then I'm like getting het up because I'm not a shouter, and I'm like, why did I take part in this? Because it's like, what did I think was going to happen? That someone go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly what I want, as I shouted at them for 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
No way going to happen. Yeah.
And energy's everything though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, everything is energy. And that's kind of what my whole life now. And totally, I mean, you can feel it before you walk in the room, can't you? And then when it actually happens, as you realise that it is going to happen when you're in there, it is, oh, whoa, hang on a minute, that's way too much. Yeah. And I suppose the thing to do with things like that, though, is you learn from it, don't you? So you won't go again, and then look at what could be possible. But yeah, I have to say, if anyone out there does know a way of energy medicine people marketing their work, I'm absolutely open to all ears to any suggestions.
Yeah, I think it's just finding the best way that you communicate, and allowing yourself to be seen and heard in your way, and the people that will hear you will hear you. It's like never in the course of the only job that I've ever done is when I used to do like promotion sales, where you're at big exhibitions and you need to be like on at that level. But you know, it's kind of like a marketplace energy because we're speaking to hundreds and thousands of people a day, and that in itself was exhausting anyway.
Oh, incredibly exhausting.
Once you finished, we'd either, if we were staying away, or go back to the hotel, Airbnb, or come home, and then at the end of like that 4-day event, there'd be at least one day where I'm just like, don't call me. I literally cannot speak. I can't hear. I don't want to hear my own voice. I don't want to hear any voices. I just need to.
Absolutely. And you know, the those of us that are involved in this work as well, I mean, we feel that's why we're in this work, because it is our superpower. So because of that, it does, things like that do affect you. There's no question they do. And so you would have felt it a lot more than your colleagues probably as well.
Yeah. And actually staying on the communication and change, what I also wanted to ask you, like how you handled this as well, because again, this is something that a lot of my clients will and do go through, is when they start to change and they start to transform the way that they show up, the things that they want, how do they then hold that new space, that new energy that they're finding in themselves, especially those early days when it's new and it's very tentative, but you're meeting with your, you know, the people in your life that are going to be constant, you know, like, we know that certain people will just kind of fall away because that's the end of that relationship's completed, whatever that may be, a relationship or a friendship or whatever. But there are people that will be constant, but then how do you encourage your clients, or what did you do for yourself to remain in this new, fresh, energetic space that you're in when other people are going, oh, you've changed, you know, and maybe trying to kind of find a way to bring you back to where you were so that they understand you, or they're finding trouble really identifying who you're becoming?
It's a massive, massive part of it, because you know, you're feeling good about yourself as you're starting to find out who you are. And then you've got the family unit that are exactly the same, and they expect you to be playing that same role as you always have. So yeah, it is a challenge, because it can become quite conflicting as you're raising your frequency. So it is very much about, if you can, be open and have those conversations with the people that are around you, so that, you know, because what normally happens though, if they see a change in you for the better, then people that love you are going to accept you for that as well, and they will adapt to that. But it probably will mean conversations, because, you know, I'm feeling so much better than I was, but they will also be able to see it. So it may be that they come to you and say, wow, look at the change in you. How good is that? And so those that aren't noticing it, and you will have to reinforce it, but also be okay with the letting go in circumstances. So, but what happens is, as you change and you start to understand you more, it's an inner feeling that you have that it ends up overriding anything else anyway. It's because it's not assertive, it's not aggressive, it just is. It's almost like contentment from how I feel with it. And it's maybe it's your conscience, and because you're feeling it so deep inside, you know that that's how it has to be. It just is, And when you start feeling that, then you find the courage to do what you need to do, whether it is letting go, whether it's having those difficult conversations. But so it is about trusting you and trusting your intuition and trusting that connection that you've made because you started exploring you internally. So it can feel very much unrest, but that's all part of the change process as well. So what happens is you realize that you need to change. So first of all, there's an awareness, and then you start putting those things into your life to help support that change. And there is going to be turbulence. It'll feel good, and then it won't, and then it will. And the more you do it, the better off you'll feel. And so the people around you starting to conflict. But because you're continuing to do those things that are creating that change, you're going to be holding onto that for longer. So then you'll have more courage to have those conversations and do what you need to do to feel right for you. And some of them, they're going to be massive. If you've been with someone for a long, long time and you've been on a certain trajectory, they can be huge upheavals. But on the other side, because you've got that inner feeling, life is just so different. I mean, mine happened because there was no question I needed to. Otherwise, I don't know, I can't imagine what would have happened if I hadn't have walked out. And I wouldn't wish anyone to be in a position that I was in. But the fact that what I've done has helped me come from that far down, then anybody can do this if they want to do it. It is very much about a choice. If you're in a situation where change is happening to you because your children have left, so it's not you that's chosen it, there's still choice. What is it that you want to do with your life? It doesn't have to be the end at all. It can be, look at it upon it as the beginning of some unbelievable things that can happen. And if you are searching for your purpose, you sit quietly and start to ask. And the more comfortable you become with that, the questions, the answers just come. And the thing that happens when the answers start to come, you start second guessing yourself and thinking, is that should I? And then just live with it for a few days. If it's still there, do it. It's your intuition. That's what it is. And so much of it at the beginning is about trusting yourself and what it is that your body is, whether it be your body's trying to tell you. Because for me, when I was in the health system, my health started to deteriorate, which was telling me, get out, girl. And for the 12 months before I left, it was like it just kept slapping me in the face every time that I didn't action it. So clearly it was time to action. So there are always signs. Just be open to the signs.
We always talk about your intuition and trust and purpose as people who are maybe deep into that understanding of that and deep into that knowing of it. But for somebody who's just starting out and they're hearing you confidently go, well, trust yourself, they're like,
yeah,
why would I do that? Like, where does that idea come from of trusting myself? How do you build that trust within yourself? What is your guidance?
That's a really, really good, because right at the beginning, it's very much a case of finding what you like to do. So you're going through change, and you don't know what you want next. This is change that's been forced upon you for whatever reason. So what is it that you do like? So, and things that you might not have done for a long time. Just write that list again. Get it out. Brainstorm it. What is it that I am looking to do? I've got control of this. What is it that I'm looking to do? I've got a choice. So those things, and it may be things like self-care. I haven't had a bath with Epsom salts and candles for how long has it been since you have done some self-care? So do some self-care. Write it down, put a date in your diary and do it. So start doing things that you really like to do, and be proud of yourself for doing it. So really little steps. It could be going for a swim twice a week because you haven't had the time to do that because other people have demanded your time. Whatever it is that works for you. And I'm talking about really basic stuff. Buy some flowers and put them in the house because they make you feel good. So start off like that. And then you start to feel better about yourself, and it's okay. And then because you start feeling better about yourself, you start then asking more questions. Oh, I've done those. What's the next thing I can do? And if you're feeling, so change, if there's that inner thing like then you get those questions come up about, okay, life after the children going to university. How do I feel my time now? those questions, if we start small, then the next questions will get answered. It's like that. And I know that being human, we're impatient. We want to get to that purpose now, because you do start thinking, well, I've got more time. What do I want to do? And it may be that I want to travel 3 times a year. And if you can afford to do that, and it's already, you're able to do that, but you've got the time now, then do that and trust that that's your thing. And so if you start with the small steps, the rest sort of unravels. Does that answer the question? Because if you can put things in practically that make you feel happier, then you start to get more in your flow. And it is a step-by-step process, because if you haven't felt like that for such a long time, how do you know where to start? And to be honest, that's exactly what I was like. I didn't have a clue what to do when I left, because I just left. And what did that mean? And I couldn't remember what I liked, because I had been so unhappy for so long. Otherwise, I wouldn't have left. So it is very much about doing those and that's what I did, those really basic self-care things to start with. And I guess also, and for me at the time, it was very much about, I just needed to get up in the morning. So take that. And I had work to go to. So it wasn't for the love of work. It was for just, I need to get there. I need to get up and out of bed in the morning. And then as that gets, but as you start to do the things that you like, and then they start to become more of your routine, you find more things. And also start to, as you do more things, it usually means that other people that you want in your life start to come into your life as well. And so it's that trajectory that happens. And then you start to feel that there's been change. You notice the change, the small steps have happened, and then you just start taking bigger steps. So you will start. And then if you meet people that talk about intuition, and if that's the way you want to head, you start meeting people like that, and then they become your circle of friends, and then you start to get it because they're talking about it and you're talking about it with them. So yeah, small steps, and it absolutely works. Yeah.
Right. And another question I really want to find out from your point of view as well, because you made a big step to step away from family, which is almost like a taboo for a woman to do as well. So how did you build yourself up from that? Because I'm guessing, I don't know the details, you might share, that people would have a lot of judgment about the step that you made, and there's all so many shoulds about what a woman should do and what a woman should endure, despite, because you're a mother after all. How could you possibly do something like that? So how did you work on facing other people's judgment if they were vocal in their judgments towards you, and then forgiving yourself and dealing with and rebuilding the relationships with your children, especially, who may or may not, I don't know where they were with all of that and what was put into their mind, because oftentimes children get weaponized in situations like that, and it takes a lot of rebuilding and restructuring of the reality that they're fed and the reality of reality, and the reasons why you had to do what you do. So how did you build all of that back to the point where now you say you've got good relationships with your children?
Okay, so when I left, so the family situation when I was living there wasn't great anyway. So he worked from home, and so he was sort of the Mr. Mum bit, and I was working shift work, and so I was working long hours and things. And so when I actually was back in the home, I was criticised for playing with my children and asking, and so their routine was set up that didn't include me. And so I wasn't often included in things. And it was kind of like the 3 children and him. So that's how controlling it was. So if we played, it was really, I was like a big kid, but it wasn't very often. So I didn't have anything to lose by leaving. Because I never had my children on my terms anyway, even in the relationship. And even by the end of it, it was also because I had been doing shift work. I was in the back room with the dog, and the children and my ex-husband were in the marital bed. So I was excluded in every way anyway, is what it felt like. So having plucked up the courage to leave, but I was in fight and flight the whole time. There is absolutely no question. And I was for a very long time, even after I'd left. I didn't plan it. All I knew is that I had tunnel vision on the next step. And today I need to get up to work. So I just got up and went to work. And we weren't we separated, and we were living up in Cairns in northern Queensland. And my family live in Western Australia, which is like 4,000 kilometres away. So there was no support network or anything, social support network. But we didn't stay there. We went down to Melbourne, where we had lived previously. And so I have never had we moved a lot. And that's one of the things that happens as well when you're in relationships like that. So I didn't have a community support around me anyway, other than my job. So how did I deal with it? I was just in fight and flight. I just knew that all I knew internally was this is no use to me, short term or long term. And I got out, and I blundered through until I was at a point where those small steps it was like that. It very much was like one foot in front of the other. And so back down in Melbourne, and then he had decided to go to the UK. Like, when is this ever going to stop? We're divorced. And anyway, they came it took me 2 years to get a visa. And I came over here and then started again. So it wasn't like I was really leaving a big community anyway. Although, having said that, when I did my yoga teacher training, I met some amazing people in the last place that I lived in, and that was a beautiful community. But that was my community. It wasn't my kids' community. They weren't part of that. It wasn't part of the family community. So yes, so I left that, and they were great. But long term, where are my kids? I'm not leaving. There's no way. When I was living there and I was trying to get a visa to come over here, all I could think of was being with them. So there's no way I was going to stay there if they were over here. So that's really what got me over here. So I don't think I've answered the question, have I?
Well, I was talking very much about, forgiveness and, when you make decisions that people are going to judge the situation, and be like, oh, if it was me, I could never do this, or how do you go about healing that to be able to heal the relationships and know that you made the right choice by doing something that would have seemed quite drastic in its inception? Yeah,
and so to be honest, I don't know if it's because of my story and how hard it has been to do. I haven't really had a lot of people. Maybe it may have thought that, and perhaps I preempt it by saying, no mother in their right mind would leave their children unless they had to, and I honestly believe that, and I wouldn't wish anyone to go through what I went through, because your children are part of you. You can feel them in your heart. So the way for me to deal with it, I just worked on me. And I knew that, because, you don't marry someone like that because you're happy. So it'd have been a long-standing thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met him. So it was a lot of inner child work. And even when I did it, even when I was going through the healing process, it was still step by step by step. It wasn't like I had a big plan. In this many years' time, I want to be with my kids. It was totally go with the flow. I can't pretend it was very structured at all. But so I just kept tuning into my guidance system. And if I had had a plan, it may have worked a lot quicker, but that just isn't the way I roll. So it didn't work like that. And I've got a damn good story to tell. So if nothing else, I'm going to use that to my advantage to help other people.
Yeah.
Because life doesn't have to be like that. And certainly there's so many things that come with, there's shame and there's guilt, and deep rooted. But my relationship with my children was, even when I had left, I caught up with them, and I was honest as you would be with a 5 and 7-year-old at the time. I was honest and they know that it wasn't to do with them. And I made sure of that the whole way through. And our communication I've always been really honest, and they've seen me when I haven't been great. And it's not in a way that, just in tears and mummy's in pain or whatever it was. I'm not doing so well today, but let's come and have lunch, or whatever it is. So for me, it was very much about open communication from the start, even when I wasn't in a good place. Mm-hmm. And so they've also seen how different I am now, and the things that we can talk about now. I know I've done the right thing, because they're just, I'm not one of their peers by any stretch, and it's not a conventional relationship, but they're as open with me as you can hope for a teenager to be. And I love that. So I know, even though I've been sitting on the sidelines as a parent it's what it feels like, for 11 years, is that such a bad thing if you can produce these two beautiful children that are put out into the world with confidence and courage and can help people? That's, I don't know what soul contract I signed, and clearly I don't know what I was thinking when I signed it.
I think we all want to see the terms and conditions of what we put out.
Exactly. Like, was I really thinking that?
Like, okay, is this the last time? If I do it good?
Yeah, exactly. Am I more awake now than I've ever been? Please.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for, sharing with that as well. I just think there's a lot of the time there are many things that are not spoken about in terms of the choices that we have to make that look difficult and invite a lot of judgment, of things that you should have done, and I personally as well have sat under the shoulds of many things, that I should have done this and I should have done that came from other people, and I wore it, and I allowed a lot of mistreatment, because I was beating myself up, and I allowed other people to kind of beat up on me because I felt that I hadn't performed in a certain way when I quote unquote should have. But then going back and looking over the situation, it's like I felt energetically, emotionally, that I had to just have some distance from the situation, because I couldn't help by staying.
Yeah, and this 100%, like 100%. And that's the thing. You don't do it because you have to. When you get to that point, I don't. From my experience, you do it because you have to. And yes, it's not the cleverest thing to do, and I could have done it so many other ways. But if I could have done, I would have. I did the best that I could do at the time, and I would do exactly the same thing. I was in the situation again because it was the best thing for me to do, and for my children as well. I 100% believe that. Because if I had stayed, I would have just been this shriveled up mind, body, soul. What's the use? What's the point? And I'm actually friends with their father now too. That's how much work I've done on myself, and we're friends because of the children. I wouldn't pretend otherwise, but he won't ever be anything different. But I allowed him to put me in that situation because of where I was at. I'm not there anymore, so it's a totally different friendship.
Well, thank you. That just those things will ring in people's ears. They'll really understand that. Tell me about how people can find you to work with you as well. I want to say thank you for sharing today, but over to you, just to let everyone know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, of course. You can connect with me through my website. So it's www.Jodi Anne Law, all one word, Jodi with an I, Anne with an E.com. And I've got a few free things on there. One of them's a free 30-minute consultation to see if we can work together. And then there's some affirmations and 3 easy ways to deal with anxiety. You can have a look. And I also have a Facebook page, and that's all Jodi Anne Law as well. And Instagram is the same, Jodi Anne Law. And I've got a YouTube channel, Jodi Anne Law, as well.
Good for you.
So all sorts of ways. But yeah, absolutely look me up, and if you're interested, book a consultation. I'd love to have a chat with you and see if we could work together.
Jodi, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your wisdom.
Thanks, Carol, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you, Jodi, for sharing your story with me, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you feel you know somebody who can benefit from the wisdom of my guest, please share, and also leave a comment and tell me what you got from this episode with Jodi. You can find out more about me on my website. It's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook under Carol May Whittick, and Instagram Casmic, CAZMICK. So until the next episode, enjoy your week, and thank you for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.